Again, thank you for the opportunity to address this question on behalf of NCOBRA of what does self-determination look like for descendants of enslaved Africans. The National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations in America is a mass-based coalition organized for the sole purpose of obtaining reparations for African descendants in the United States. The National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations in America, or NCOBRA, was formed as a coalition in the mid-1980s to bring together the different groups working for reparations for African chattel enslavement at the time. A key organizing force was Baba Imari Obadeli, our ancestor, and also the organization, the Republic of New Africa, and which is also known as the RNA. And the RNA was founded on the principle that people of African descent were not given a choice. They weren't given a choice regarding their initial kidnapping and enslavement, and they were not given a choice regarding their fate after the end of the internal political conflict we call the American Civil War. Now, the RNA chose to establish a separate nation in the Black Belt states of the U.S., but recognized that there were other options. Physical separation from Europeans while remaining in this country is one option. There's also repatriation. Repatriation, traveling to a different country, whether on the African continent or in the Caribbean, is another option. And then finally, integration into American society is a third option. So we have separation, repatriation, or integration. And as we look at the history of African people, we see that there have been leaders, there have been movements that have championed in all three of those strategies at different times. Now, NCOBRA thinks self-determination for the descendants of enslaved Africans looks like a plebiscite. A plebiscite is a gathering of a group to decide for themselves what they do, where they go, and what their future will be. A plebiscite is what has historically been denied to Africans enslaved in the U.S. A plebiscite would provide descendants of enslaved Africans the opportunity to choose their fate, to decide for themselves, to self-determine their own fate. A plebiscite requires education, engagement, and action on the parts of the descendants of enslaved Africans in order to not just make a choice, but to make an informed choice. And we've heard from the previous speakers parts, and of all these both strategies as far as which way to go, but also we've heard folk talk about the different elements of the kinds of education or the kinds of engagement or even the kinds of action ultimately that will be required collectively for both a plebiscite and or for legitimate self-determination. Because self-determination cannot exist without our determining our fate ourselves. And that requires a plebiscite. What a plebiscite will look like has to be determined by us. The outcome of a plebiscite may result in different people taking different actions, different approaches, different journeys, either separation, repatriation, or integration. Self-determination is our making the determination ourselves. And part of the plebiscite process, again, is that it doesn't have to be, one thing about European culture is it only allows, you can only be one thing. It only allows for one thing. But really, the reality that we live in and our experience is that we're many things. We're multifaceted, have many multi-dimensions to our experience. And so a plebiscite would allow for more than one choice. It doesn't have to be majority rule. We got this particular option got the most votes. That's the only thing that we can do. But to be truly self-determining, we have to provide the kinds of information and participation that allows for making an informed choice and the resources to carry through on whatever that choice may have been that was made. And Cobra has spent much of its time working on the educational part of the reparations equation. And ultimately, we look at the idea, we look at the notion, we look at the implementation of a plebiscite for the descendants of Africans formerly enslaved in the U.S. as the prime strategy for self-determination. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Lett. Next, we will have Attorney Malik Zulu Shabazz speak on the topic, what does self-determination look like to you for descendants of enslaved Africans? And please briefly introduce yourself. Thank you.
Greetings. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum and Black Power. Greetings to all of my dear brothers and sisters from these strong organizations from all over the country. It is my honor. My name is Malik Zulu Shabazz. I am the president of Black Lawyers for Justice, and I'm the national chairman of the new Black Panther Party, which is in at least 40 cities in America and throughout the world. I want to say that it is an honor to be on here with the Afrodescendant Nation and all of its leadership, and to be a part of this very necessary and professional process that has been given to us through the Honorable Silas Muhammad. Well, I'm very happy to have been invited here to be a part of this process. I honor the Afro-Descendant Nation and the members of the Lost Foundation of Islam for pulling together such distinguished leadership. I won't waste your time with so many important guests. And I'll get right to the point. Self-determination, it starts looking like what we have here in this conference this morning. It looks like we have a form of a government. It looks like that we have some very capable leaders at the table who have decided that their collective will be brought about together. Honors to N'Cobra, honors to Charles Barron, and so many great groups here. So I do want to emphasize that the bringing together of this gathering is a great sign of what we ultimately hope to accomplish. The United Nations Charter clarifies two meanings of the term self-determination. Says a state, said status have the right, or people have the right to self-determination in the sense of having the right to choose freely its political, economic, social, and cultural systems. Second, the right to self-determination is defined by the UN Charter as a right of a people to constitute itself in a state or otherwise freely determine the form of its association with an existing state. Both meanings have their basis in the Charter, Article 1, Paragraph 2, Article 55. So clearly the UN Charter, again, the second point applies to us. It says it defines the right of a people to constitute itself in a state or otherwise freely determine its form of association with an existing state. That seems like us inside of this United States of America. And also it sounds like they're talking about what I came into this movement for. I came in this movement as a Muslim and as a Black nationalist, and one who believed in the vision of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad that we must have a state or territory of our own, a contiguous state with defendable borders. Okay, just to open up, and then I want to continue to learn. I think the progressive step, I know that there's steps to this conference, but I will like to weigh in and say I first, from what I've heard, I agree with the procedural recommendation of a plebiscite. A plebiscite is probably one of the most progressive actions that this distinguished body of organizations and leaders could engage in. A plebiscite is a vote by a people of an entire country or district to decide on some issue, such as a choice, ruler of government, option for independence, annexation by another power, or another question of national policy. My honored gentleman from N'Cobra was entirely correct. I firmly believe from my organizing experience and my political experience and my courtroom experience around the country that we are at a stage where we must have a national vote, that we should unite to question our people on what form of self-determination they desire. And actually, we took a small step in that direction. In Juneteenth in Mississippi, there were at least 20 Black nationalist organizations, mainly self-defense groups, which included the New Black Panther Party, Huey P. Newton Gun Club, or a lot of the groups that you might see online, where we all gathered in Mississippi. And there was a plebiscite agreed on by the leadership of this body of organizations, this specific block of organizations. And there were 4 key national questions on the ballot. We had a ballot signed, and we are currently promoting that ballot. And the ballot decided the forms of self-determination that we desired and agreed on. So what I want to say to conclude is that self-determination is yes, full and complete control of our lives. Best comes in the form of a state territory of our own. It's in my recommendation, it's best to gain momentum, to get us to working together, to get us a project or an assignment where we can reach the masses of our people. I'm certainly for a plebiscite, a mass vote to get down so we can educate our people educate our people who want liberation, but we can educate them and galvanize ourselves, organize ourselves, and put us a mass vote to the people so that we can get up out of this condition after so many years of the message that Master Farad Muhammad and Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Marcus Garvey, and Malcolm X, Honorable Huey P. Newton, Dr. Khalid Muhammad, my teacher, that they gave us. I thank you this morning for giving me these few moments. I'm here as a participant. I'm honored to be on. And assalamu alaikum and Black power to you all.
Thank you, Attorney Malik. We're about to move into our Q&A for our invited guests. I will call on each invited guest to ask a question or provide comments. You may ask a question of any of the speakers, on, and we have about 15 minutes inside of this space before we go into our break. So the first person, Brother Lawrence, will you please briefly introduce yourself and ask your question or provide a comment?
Yes, I'm Lawrence Tunsil, co-founder of Citizens Organized for Environmental Justice. And first of all, let me say Asante Sana and thank you to the Afrodescendant Nation and Dr. Brooks Robinson for inviting me to this most critical discussion. And I'm sure we are all agreed that seeking to become self-determined is, as Dr. Robinson so eloquently stated, an endeavor in which we all should be engaged. I was particularly intrigued by his characterization of the question, why? So while we as Afro-descendants are overrepresented in all of the negative categories and underperforming in all of the beneficial sectors, we must return to the haunting question of why. Why are we in this condition? So in order to move forward, we must determine what is at the core and the base of our condition. And it is my contention that finding a way to address the wretched mental and psychological condition of the masses of our people should be at the very top of any list of correctives. Self-hatred, negative self-image, low self-esteem, and I might add, addiction to white. That's Dr. Jerome Fox wrote that book, by the way. Are all pathologies that, if treated successfully, would not only make us competitive, but will unleash the long-stammered creative genius that built the world's first civilization. So my question to the roundtable, how do we bring our people back to some semblance of sanity?
Thank you, Brother Lawrence. Anyone at the round table can choose to answer since Brother Lawrence didn't direct it to a specific person. Dr. Robinson, I see your hand up. Thank you. We can't hear you.
Thank you, Baba Tunsil, for that powerful question. Core of what we're talking about. If you think about what all of the speakers, all the panelists have said here, they have, kind of put things in context about what we're trying to do and what we're talking about here. But when you start an action plan, you have to get to the core. And the core is about the mind. Where the head or the mind goes, the bodies will follow. So if we're talking about self-determination or separation, first you got to get the mind right. You got to get the mind right. And so we need a radical brain transplant. That's what one speaker said many years ago. I don't recall the name, but he said we need a radical brain transplant so that we can awaken to what we are as a people and what our opportunities are and what achievements we can make. And because the media has played an integral role in shaping the mind, we got to start in part with getting control of a media platform that will allow us to begin to shape the minds and the hearts of Black people so that we can make a determination that we really want to become self-determined. I'll stop there.
Thank you, Dr. Robinson, for that response. And thank you again, Brother Lawrence, for the question and the comments. Next, we will have Brother Shabaka. Will you please briefly introduce yourself and provide comments and or ask your question, please?
Yeah, greetings, everyone, and Sister President, please let me thank you for allowing me the opportunity to ask a question. I'm honored to be here. I appreciate Dr. Brooks also inviting me to this forum. And of course, I'm always honored to be in the presence of the Honorable Salas Muhammad and Queen Misaki. My question is based, or rather it's directed towards Dr. Robinson, and that is based on the question, or rather the presentation by Sister Salih Muhammad seemed to imply, her presentation seemed to imply that self-determination is more than just self-determination for a group of Afro-descendants in the US, that it seemed to extend throughout the hemisphere, if I understood her presentation correctly. I would like you to address that. How do you see it specifically addressing the Afro-descendants in the US? And is it necessary, in your opinion, that there would be some collaboration or interaction or formation with Afro-descendants in the Western Hemisphere? Thank you.
Dr. Robinson.
Thank you very much, Baba Shabaka. You raised an interesting question, and you referred to Sister Salia. Let me take a second and correct Sister Salia on something that she should know before I answer your question. She talked about two opportunities for self-determination. She talked about the 40 acres and a mule, and she gave another reference as well, the Freedmen's Bank. The reality is that even before the war, or about the time of the war, President Lincoln called Black leadership in. He called them in and he asked them, he said, look, we don't really want you here, and we can help you get your own place, most likely down in Central America. What y'all say about that? Well, the Black folk, the Black leaders, rejected the opportunity to establish our own homeland. It might have been a colony initially, but over time, just like the African nations have become independent over time, we possibly could have been an independent nation today. But Black leadership did not do its job properly. I'll stop there on that, and you can do the research on it. There were other movements too, at about the same time, the so-called Cherokee movement, where some went to an island. It was kind of a disaster. But the main point is that Black leadership rejected an opportunity for Black Americans to have their own territory in what is now Central America back in the 1860s. Now, to answer Brother Shabaka's question, and I'll be brief. In my view, I think that we should focus on ourselves first. I mean, you can't help other people if you can't help yourself. So we need to get our own act together, organize ourselves in whatever manner we decide to do that, and then reach out. I mean, we can chew gum and walk at the same time, so there can be some connections. But I think we should focus initially on really organizing ourselves so that we are well on the road to self-determination before we begin to engage in a wholehearted effort to start reaching out internationally, unless in fact a plebiscite or whatever method is used to make a determination says that we should actually repatriate. If we're going to talk about separation right here in the United States, then let's focus on ourselves first before we begin to reach out to other nations. I think that would be the best strategy. I hope others will have comments on this topic.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr.
Can I say
Robinson.
something, Dr. McCarron?
Yes, sir. Go right ahead.
Yeah,
Dr.
you know,
Raymond.
there seems to be this increased, I don't know how to put it, but it seems like there's an increased disdain for Pan-Africanism. This idea that we've got to take care of ourselves here in the United States before we can take care of others. And, you know, it seems to me that that goes against what the Honorable Marcus Garvey wanted, because he clearly wanted everybody, you know, Africans throughout the world to unite, to return to Africa. It clearly goes against Kwame Nkrumah's idea of a united Africa, where he did go across borders or attempted to go across borders before the CIA undermined his movement. And I don't know, this disdain. And then, I mean, here in the United States, we see it in the so-called ADOS movement, or, you know, African descendants of slave, a name I detest. You know, and I hope that we're not at a point that we're saying, let's do us before we do other people. And I understand that we have issues within our own community. But I think that if we leave off the idea of Pan-Africanism, you know, we're going to run into a world of trouble. And I don't like comparing ourselves to Jews, but Jews never saw them getting reparations, for example, for the Holocaust, by saying we're going to just talk about Jews in, I don't know, United States or whatever. They talked about it throughout the world as a worldwide movement. So I just wanted to offer that up.
Thank you, Dr. Ray. I appreciate that. For the sake of time, we're going to move on to our next invited guest to give them an opportunity to have a voice in this space on asking questions of the panelists or providing comments. At this time, we will have Ajani Mukaram.
Yes, I think we're having technical difficulties with the close proximity that I'm in the room with the president. And so with that, I'm not going to unmute. Hopefully you can hear me via her mic. Can you?
Can you all hear
Yes.
Ajani?
Yes,
Okay.
we can. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so then I will stay unmuted so that we don't get the negative feedback. I am, for years, have been a member of the Lost Foundation of Islam and a minister in the Lost Foundation of Islam and a member of the Afrodescendant Nation. First of all, thank you. I have been on this mission of supporting the Honorable Salas Muhammad and Queen Mashaki Muhammad, and have been a voice both nationally and internationally in this arena of self-determination, traveling to the United Nations and traveling abroad, speaking on behalf of Black people and Afro-descendant people throughout the world, the global world. My one question is, when we talk about self-determination, and I know we are talking about, as Sister Celia said, and as Prince Yusuf said, in terms of perhaps looking outside of the United States of America. But I'd just like to ask Brother Willard, and I'd also like to ask Dr. Ray Winbush, because I know when these movements happen, most times it's the youth that really push the movement. Now, I'm far past my youthful days, but I first came into this, myself and President Mukaram, as college students on the campus of Tuskegee University. And Dr. Ray Winbush, you being there on the campus, HBCU Morgan State, how do we get our youth involved in the self-determination movement? How do we, Prince Yusuf, get the youth involved and galvanize and helping us push the self-determination movement forward? For they are the voice, and they have the means through social media, through TikTok, through Instagram, through Snapchat, through Facebook, to help us move this along. And with that, I'll submit my questions to Dr. Ray Winbush, Dr. Yusuf, and Dr. Willard. Brother Willard. Thank you.
Well, one of the things we have to understand, I think, as older people, is that social media has really grabbed the attention of our young people. I teach young people. I'm teaching a class this semester at Morgan called Theories of Personality, as I'm a psychologist. And and this is not an exaggeration, and it doesn't reflect necessarily on Morgan State students, but a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned, almost casually, Clarence Thomas as an example of self-hatred. And one of the students in class, sister raised her hand and said, Dr. Wimbush, who is Clarence Thomas? And I didn't want you never disdain a student or say something negative to put down a student when you're teaching. So I said, would someone in class tell this young lady who Clarence Thomas is? This is a class of 35 students and no one knew. Our young people have, and I told her, of course, who he was. Our young people have really, sustained from K through 12 educational abuse. That's the only way to describe it. So by the time they get, if they go to college and if they go to an HBCU, we have to, undo years of, miseducation, as Carter Woodson called it. I think what you have to do, you have to, deliberately use deliberate psychological, methods and expose them directly, in almost a forced way. TikTok, as you just mentioned, Snapchat, Facebook, Twitter, all of these things, they are really grabbing the attentions of our young people. What do they say? The average American reads 2.5 books a year. We don't even finish the third one. And reading right now is not as fundamental as it was in our generation. And so I'm more aggressive. And there's a few of us at Morgan State, as there are at most HBCUs, that are very aggressive in trying to expose our students to ways of learning that just makes them learn. You gotta be, they love me to death, but there's certain things that I just tell them they have to do this, because if they don't do it, they're not going to succeed in the world. And I'm troubled by the fact that we have less and less Black nationalist young people in our midst. They got
Dr. Wimbush, excuse me, I'm sorry. Don't mean to cut you off.
No, that's all right.
We
I'll
are
stop
in a
there.
time constraint,
No
and
problem.
we are at our 15-minute break. So I need to provide that 15-minute break. If we have time towards the end, because when we come back, we'll pick up with the next topic, the question, because there were two other people that was question was directed to. If we have time in this space to answer that, we will. If not, if you all can provide it, provide the answer, and we will get that to Ajani, and we can share it in some correspondence as to how you all responded. So at this time, we will take our 15-minute break. We will see you back here in 15 minutes. Thank you all so much. Enjoy your break. Welcome back from our break. I hope you all had a restful one, refreshing one. We will pick up with our next topic. This topic, panelists will speak on sharing information about the work that you do, have done, and or would like to do to obtain self-determination for us. I'm asking you to adhere to the time of 3 to 5 minutes for each speaker. We will time during this session. Admin will be keeping the time. And if you go over, I will ask you to wrap it up quickly, and so we can move on and keep the time, because we have a lot to accomplish in this space here today. Thank you so much for being respectful and being here with us today. So we will start with Dr. Robinson on sharing your information about the work that you do, have done, and or would like to do to obtain self-determination for us as Afro-descendants.
Thank you very much, President Mukaram. Once again, thank you for this opportunity. And I'm really enjoying the conversation that we're having. On the work that we do, we're delighted to say that blackeconomics.org, the co-contributors, that is myself and Mr. Lindsay Rod Robinson, we do our best to conduct vigorous and timely analyses of Black economic concepts, issues, policies, and plans. However, one of our current projects, one of our current projects at the moment is working with a group of grassroots experts to develop what we call a long-term strategic plan for Black Americans. Now, while we're aware of at least 5 agendas that have been developed for Black America, we're also aware of plans for Black America or agendas for Black Americas that have been developed by the United States government, by state governments, by local governments, and even by firms. What we are not aware of is a plan by Black America, for Afro-descendants, by Afro-descendants, that try to extrapolate out 100 years, looking into the future. That's what we're working on right now, and we hope to finish that work in the early part, in the first half of next year, if all goes well. You know, it's one thing to talk about creating opportunities for self-determination. There's another thing to actually begin to write down the plan to make that happen. And though we are not the 24 angels that might be required to do that in a perfect way, we will use the expertise that we have to do that. I'll just say that Baba Lawrence Tunsil, whom you've met, and Baba Shabaka, whom you've met this morning, they are part of that long-term strategic plan panel. Now, on what we would like to do to enable Afro-descendants achieve self-determination, there are 3 things. The first thing, as part of that long-term strategic plan, we want to help build a National Black Council or Congress that will have leadership of important Black organizations, Afro-descendant organizations, and individuals who can convene to actually implement, to control the implementation of the long-term strategic plan that we are developing. That Congress or Council will also be a clearinghouse of correspondence up and down the chain, from the Congress level down to the local level, so that Black Americans, Afro-descendants, can be aware of this long-term strategic plan and how the plan is unfolding as it's being implemented. That's one thing, to develop that National Black Planning Council or Congress. Secondly, we know that it is critical that we have the ability to communicate. And so one of the things that we want to do is help develop or evolve a media platform that can be a 24/7 type network that allows the National Black Planning Council or Congress and any other important voice to actually be in the households, be in the hearts and minds of Black Americans at any point in time when it is necessary to convey some important information about developments that concern us. Now, right now, myself and others in this long-term strategic plan panel are working with a small internet radio station down in Birmingham, Alabama, called Sankofa Revolutionary Radio. And that station, though it is small today, has the potential to evolve into part of that network that will allow us to reach into Black homes and to the hearts and minds of Black people 24/7 in the future. So we need a communications platform so that we can shape the hearts and minds of Black Americans and help us achieve self-determination. And then the final thing that I'd like to work on, and that I plan to work on if all goes well, is to do what many of you have talked about. And that is develop a more specific strategy for increasing the unity and trust of Black Americans. You know, our biggest problem, one of our biggest problems, is the unity and trust, the absence of that unity and trust. And it is that absence of unity and trust that is preventing us from actually achieving our goals, our desires. And so I'm very interested going forward to work on helping Black Americans develop more unity and trust. So develop that National Black Planning Council, our Congress, develop that Black media platform that can reach Black Americans at any time. And then third, help Black Americans come together more effectively under unity and trust. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Robinson. Dr. Ray, will you please share information about the work that you do, have done, and or would like to do to obtain self-determination for us?
Well, I try to educate by any means necessary. I think the biggest contribution I've made is try to document many of the things that have happened through my books, the 4 books, the latest about Frances Cress Welsing, because the world, I still think that she has one of the most important theories that have been offered in the past 50 years to African people. Also, you know, they say if you can't, you know, lick them, join them. So I've tried to be influential on a mass level with film. Ryan Coogler, the guy that directed Black Panther, approached me a few years ago and asked, because I was a student thousands of years ago at the University of Chicago, right after Fred Hampton was assassinated by the FBI. So we worked together and I did the research on the film, Judas and the Black Messiah. Also, Charles Burnett, the filmmaker, we did a film a few years ago called Nat Turner, Troublesome Property. So I've tried to take what I know in the academy and apply it through film as well as in books that are hard to get published. It's hard to get a book published about Frances Welsing, and we were able to get that done through Black Classics Press, as well as hard to get a film made about Fred Hampton. And it will at least expose our people to somebody and people that they may not ordinarily encounter, or for young people not even read. So I'll stop there.
Thank you, Dr. Ray. Next, we will have Queen Mashaki. Will you please share information about the work that you do, have done, and or would like to do to obtain self-determination for us?
Thank you, moderator. What I would like to remind our listening audience is that although we are a group of African Americans talking about what we need to do in the United States, when we got started at the international level, we included all people similarly situated. The United Nations taught us to include that, or they wouldn't even entertain us. So I want to give you this history of what has taken place in the UN so that you'll know why we are at the point we are in history now, and know that quite a bit of work has taken place by the UN under the UN auspices to get us to this point we are now. We first started off by presenting a 1503 projected document about human rights, and that petition was rejected. At the time, they told us that it did not prove a constant pattern of human rights violations. To me, can you imagine that our 400 years of history is not a consistent pattern of human rights violations? Anyway, we did continue in our work. And by 1997, the Honorable Silas Muhammad gave his first intervention to the subcommissioners. He let them know that this systematic, continuous, gross violation of our human rights should be protected by international law. He pointed out to the documents that they had in existence then. It was known as the International Covenant for the Civil and Political Rights. And he pointed out Article 27 to them to show, as Brooks Robinson said, they really need the radical brain transplant. So we started with the United Nations trying to transplant their brain system. That statement in that document says, and I quote, "In those states which ethnic, religious, or linguistic minorities exist, in persons belonging to such minorities shall not be denied the right in community with other members of their groups to enjoy their own culture, to profess and practice their own religion, or to use their own language," end of quotes. Now, if you remember, then and now, the United Nations used to brag about the fact that they were trying to get established human rights for everyone, everywhere. What Silas Muhammad did was point out to them, to the subcommissioners he was speaking to, that our human rights had been systematically and deliberately destroyed by our slave masters. Therefore, we had no internationally recognized human rights. That was a shock to them because they hadn't thought of it that way. And to show you what an impact it made on them at the time, one of the sub-commissioners by the name of Mahedi got up out of his seat and walked a long distance down to where we were sitting. And he shook the hand of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad shook the hand of Silas Muhammad, excuse me. That showed you how much he stays on my mind. In order to let him know, yes, you have really pointed out something important to us. And at the time, there was a Professor Ide, I think he was from Norway, and he thought about it too. He said, "You know, Mr. Muhammad, you're absolutely right. We have left you out of protected human rights. But now we have to work on seeing where you fit in." That's the terminology he used. And they decided to proceed with establishing a working group for minorities. And they were going to include as one of their ongoing topics of discussion the discrimination that we have received as plantation slavery descendants. So what they did was listen to Silas Muhammad's cry, and he was asking them to set up forums. We need, as those people, to be able to sit down and discuss things with each other. And we cannot do that because we are inhibited by the language of our slave masters. You know, here in the States, we speak English. We're comfortable with English. That's the only way we can dialogue. In South America, they're comfortable in Spanish. They want to dialogue and talk in Spanish. In Portugal, and not Portugal, but Brazil, Portuguese is their language. And something that we sometimes forget in the States is that there are about 70 million ex-slaves in Portugal. And they don't, in Brazil, excuse me, and they don't have the opportunity to get as far as we have in the States with the concept of human rights. They have some serious problems down there that they're working on. To give you an example, when we were the National Bar Association, a Black group of attorneys, when we traveled to Brazil, we went through Bahia first, then we went on to Rio de Janeiro, and we actually got kidnapped in Rio de Janeiro. We thought we were going to a party, and instead of a party, they had on a human rights demonstration, and they actually kidnapped us. They got us in there, and then they had our president at the time give a speech on what we as African Americans had accomplished in the States in terms of civil rights, and it was given to the Brazilian in the Portuguese language so they could understand it. But this is the kind of thing that the Honorable Silas Muhammad was trying to get the United Nations to give us and give us some protection while we're doing it. And they decided they were going to do that. So one of the first things we did was have a forum in the Palace Wilson in Geneva, Switzerland. That came up about May 19th of 2001. And then the next forum that they gave us, and this was with interpreters. We got what we asked for. We got interpreters for Portuguese, Spanish, and English. And then we had our meeting in Montreal, Canada, about 2001. We had another World Conference Against Racism that took place in Durban, South Africa. Got it right that time? And that was about September of 2001. And the fourth one we had was in La Ceiba, Honduras. That's where the Garifuna or Garifuna, as you want to call them, people met. And we got a chance to meet with them and find out what their problems were. Very serious problems. A little history on them. They were shipwrecked. They were slaves coming to the South Americas, and they were shipwrecked. They survived, and the Honduras government gave them certain rights and certain property areas right on the coastline. And they were able to stay there for quite a while. They established their culture from Africa, and they were quite content as a people there in Honduras. And all of a sudden, here, not too long ago, they were trying to be forced off of those lands because there were large corporations that wanted that ocean land, beach land, precious land. And if they didn't agree with them, they were killing them. So these are the kinds of things that we face as descendants of slaves. It was in the meeting that we had in La Ceiba. And again, I want you to remember, these were United Nations seminars that were put together. They selected people from 19 other different countries to represent their countries so that it would be a cross example of what former slaves are experiencing. And At this time, there was a long discussion. We were there about a week, and the term Afrodescendants came up over and over again. And our brothers and sisters in the slavery diaspora who lived in the South American continent discussed and were very adamant about all of us being known as Afro-descendants. So this term is something that we voted on at that conference, and it was accepted by all of us that instead of being African Americans, which you all in the States like to use that as a term, that's all right, I guess, for you to think of yourself as Afro Americans. But the United Nations now looks upon you as Afro-descendants. Okay, I'm running out of time. We had one more meeting under the auspices of the United Nations and with their protection, and that was in Chincha, Peru. And then after that time, all of a sudden, the Department of Human Rights was disintegrated. Think about that. We were making progress, and it was just disintegrated. So with this, I'm going to yield back to our monitor.
Thank you, Queen Mashaki. Next, we will have Brother Shaka Barak speak on sharing information about the work that you do, have done, and or would like to do to obtain self-determination for us.
Thank you. I've been studying the life and works of the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey for over 40 years. I've met men and women who worked with him, worked for him, and were taught by him. My mentor, the Honorable Charles L. James, was taught by him in a course called African Philosophy. And then he taught me the course. The course can be obtained, at least a book, The Message to the People, the course of African Philosophy in your African American bookstores. After founding the Marcus Garvey Institute in 1992, we have created the Marcus Garvey exhibit with dozens of enlarged photos of the Honorable Marcus Garvey and the UNIA, including documents, auxiliaries, ships, and display them at colleges, universities, academies, schools, temples, and churches. So we think that knowing about the Honorable Marcus Garvey is an important element to knowing who we are. I have worked with many groups in our community, internationally, including serving on the organizing committees of the Million Man March and the Million Woman March. I have several Facebook accounts, International Year for People of African Descent, International Decade for People of African Descent, and the Marcus Garvey Institute. I have written many articles for newspapers about the Honorable Marcus Garvey and just the issues that our people are faced with on a day-to-day basis. I've served as a host on radio and cable television shows, including a spiritual alternative that was set up by the late Prince ICL. As a matter of fact, Yosef ICL, my wife just told me that when they were viewing the play that the African Hebrew Israelite community set up called Sound and the Kidnapped African, you were just a baby then, and she remembers holding you in her arms. But, you know, our brother, Prince ICL, taught us a lesson when he attempted to bring the issue of what the United States sanctions were doing against the people of Zimbabwe and how they were hurting the children. They said he didn't have a pass to talk to these Africans. He didn't have a pass to be able to lobby. And so they persecuted him and Brother Gregory Turner. I was there in the courtroom every time they went to court. I maintained communication with them. And I wrote articles in the Crusader newspaper several articles for weeks about the persecution of Princess Yale and how that was similar to the persecution of others who tried to work with our brothers and sisters abroad. So freedom is not free. I have also made efforts to, I worked in the Chicago public school system, Betty Shabazz International Charter School. I worked in the Juvenile Detention Center. So I'm not afraid of our young people. So I can get in front of the camera, I can get behind the camera. I can, work with our young people, and we need to be able to do that. Lastly, if we're going to have self-determination, we have to be aware that it's going to be met with some resistance. If you're not being met with some resistance, then you're not doing enough, or you're not visible, because the powers that be, in terms of white supremacy, they're not going to sit back and just let us interfere with the system that they have in place, whether it's anti-Africanism or whether it's the issue of land that has been stolen and our desire to have that return, nor will they let our people go without pushing back. So I just want us to really think seriously that this is going to require our ability to not only pursue self-reliance, but to also be able to use self-help to be able to take care of ourselves and to protect ourselves. And I'll end there. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Shaka.
You're welcome.
Next, Attorney Malik, will you share your information about the work that you do, have done, and or would like to do to obtain self-determination for us?
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Nahida. Thank you so much, ma'am. Okay, I want to say, in terms of, I'll explain what I have done only in the context of what I believe could contribute to this process of self-determination and to the process of this panel that we have assembled here. Okay, so a gentleman raised the question about councils. I think this was my brother, Dr. Robinson. He proposed a council. Well, I do want to say that it clearly appears that we have a leadership council here. This is a leadership council. There's no doubt. We recognize who we have at the table here. There was a question about reaching people, media platform. Dr. Wade Winbush, my brother, he answered part of it because he has he's in media, he's in film, he's got reach. I would like to report here and say that I work with the son of Dr. Khalid Mohammed. He works with me in terms of getting my messages out. On Instagram, I have, I think, almost 200,000 followers. In the course of the last couple months, due to my political, legal, social media abilities, I reached, what they say, 30 million people in the last 60 days. I reached 30 million people. So that's a resource that I say I would bring to this distinguished table. Okay, in terms of what I've been able to do, just in general, just so we just know what kind of resources that we have at the table. I have, as an attorney, I'm in a human rights work. For example, currently I'm conducting a national human rights legal investigation and lawsuits against racist counties in Mississippi. Some of you've seen on the news. I represent the family of Emmett Till. I'm about to sue the state of Mississippi for equal protection violations and failing to prosecute the case of Emmett Till. So I've engaged in a whole host of legal actions that in somehow, some way, I believe could benefit this body, because I'm an active attorney at law around the country, engaged in the fight against racism, police brutality. So I'm one of the persons in that field that could add benefit to, I believe, what we're doing here. As an organizer, I've been organizing all my life since I was a college student. So I would say I bring to the table not only my individual abilities, but I bring to the table the abilities of the New Black Panther Party. New Black Panther Party is a Black nationalist militant organization that in many of the campaigns that we talk about, or reaching young people, or shaking this system, Brother Barack, because there won't be any resistance unless we are putting forth some offense to be resisted. So I would say that the New Black Panther Party and many other Black nationalist groups that I would say I bring their vote, if you will, to the table. Okay, so let me get to a point here because I want to stay within my time frame. Again, when we all had our last national convention in Jackson, Mississippi, many of the Black nationalist groups that believe in what I'm here to represent today, and I bring at least the consent of at least leaders of 12 other organizations around the country. This is a copy. This is a copy of our plebiscite, our ballot. And this may serve as a possible sample in some way. Okay, they're putting it on the screen. I thank you so much. Okay, so we talked about education. So the first page of the ballot is educational. So I'll read it fast so I can respect the time here. First page is the reason why we're voting. The second page is the vote. Okay. It says here, it's on the screen, first page, official ballot, plebiscite, vote on self-determination. It says a declaration of self-determination by Black peoples and organizations. And it says, whereas for over 500 years, we as a people in the jurisdiction of the United States of America have suffered from mass chattel slavery, systematic racism, deliberate discrimination, institutionalized police brutality, attempted genocide, colonization, both physical and mental, governmental neglect, torture, sabotage, destruction of our culture, destruction of our family units, assassination of our leadership, mass incarceration, subject to political prisoners, FBI counterintelligence program, unjust biased court systems, incalculable human rights violations of every type, and a longer train of abuses and usurpations too innumerable to be adequately described herein. Whereas the United States government has refused to pay our people full and complete reparations as a measure of compensation for the atrocities and Black Holocaust committed against our people since America's inception. Whereas our lives as Black people are in clear and present danger of deadly massacres, poverty, police brutality, human rights violations, and similar atrocities of the past. And whereas the Declaration of Independence says of persons in our colonized position and condition that is their right, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for future security. That's the reasons why we vote. And this was the vote. This is the vote that we're taking and that we are pushing and want to push further. It says here, the official ballot, it says we therefore cast this vote. We therefore cast this vote as a formal plebiscite signed by our leadership and our people as a formal declaration of our national aim and interest. Ballot question number 1, it says, do you declare your right to receive full and complete reparations? It's a simple yes or no. Ballot question number 2, do you declare your right to self-determination your right to have complete control over your own affairs and people, and otherwise govern yourself? Yes or no? It was a unanimous yes. Ballot question number 3. Do you declare your right to independence and your right to establish a state and territory of your own? And ballot question number 4 was, do you declare your determination to unite and defend your people and stand and fight for what you have affirmed in this vote? These were the 4 questions. There was one more question that demanded freedom for political prisoners that we added to this ballot. So I just wanted to say that this is some of the work that we have tried to do to support this process. We're serious about it. We're very impressed by this process. And I, as an individual and the organizations I represent, that whatever we have to bring to this table and this process of the Afrodescendant Nation, that we'll bring it. Whatever we have that I've just outlined, we bring it to this process. And I thank you for this time.
You're welcome. And thank you, Attorney Malik. Next, we will have Prince. Prince, I would like to ask you, because I've heard your first name pronounced different ways. What name, how do you pronounce your name?
Yosef.
Yosef.
Correct.
Sorry, I have to do phonics for myself.
Quite fine.
Okay, thank you. So next we will have Prince Yosef share information about his work, the work that you do, have done, and or would like to do to obtain self-determination for us as Afro-descendants.
Absolutely. And I will answer in the order in which you have articulated. Again, I want to give reference and honor and praise to the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, whose birth anniversary we just celebrated yesterday. I'm eternally grateful for his perfect student and son, spiritually the Honorable Silas Muhammad, his wife, the Queen, the Afrodescendant Nation, the Lost Foundation of Islam, and all of those who, again, on this august body that we are forming today. I, under the leadership of His Excellency Ben Ami, Nasik Shaliak, and Prince ICL, am a student of those three, but I represent the message in which they live by, which is heralded in the kingdom of God. Now, though it is articulated in somewhat of a spiritual, biblical sense, it is very much so a tangible reality. I currently am a spokesman and ambassador, a liaison for the Hebrew Israelite community to other organizations, whether it be spiritual-based, political-based, or even economic-based, to build the necessary healthy relationships that we need to implement all of the change which allows us to have the reality of freedom, justice, and equality for our people, wherever they are found. I've been privileged to inherit the role of ambassador for my father, who personally trained and taught me for over 14 years to be in this position when he is physically not amongst us, that his spirit may live on into perpetuity. I have traveled these United States, Central America, and I've been blessed to go all throughout the continent of Africa, from the East Coast to the West Coast to the North to the South, to reach our people and wherever they may be found, to develop the relationships or to continue the relationships that have been established. My father, before I was in this position, said, son, if we're going to be free, how do we overcome the seemingly insuperable impediments that presently are presented before us? What innovation in those particular fields what we must create to be able to see our freedom, And I asked them, what were those four in which I should prioritize before I become this son and student that will ultimately, hold your position? He said, first, food, proper dietary habits, but also the cultivation of food. Learn how do we properly grow and sustain our own food. and how we properly eat those foods to promote longevity and health. He said, second, healthcare. We must create the necessary institutions that we are able to remove ourselves from the insidious systems that we know have been experimenting and killing us for multiple generations. A beautiful sister here in Washington talks about medical apartheid, and there are other books, a litany of books that articulate how they have used their so-called Western medicine to be a force of destruction unto African people. We have to create the necessary institutions that free us from their supposed healthcare system. Next, he said energy. We must become energy independent. There's good to be spiritually and politically independent, but if we're still relying on ComEd, People's Gas, or whatever energy source that they are in control of, where they can flip a switch to remove our energy source, then we then become dependent on the very people that we removed our independence from. And he also talked about protection. We understand that this system, though everyone should not be classified, the majority of the police force, in particular in America, has been the same old spirit nature that we know it was produced from, and those were the slave catchers of the old in the antebellum South that we see evident today. We got to create our own security and our own protection units. So these particular endeavors or activities of life, he made me study diligently for 10 years until I was properly prepared, and I still study to this very second, to move into a position where I could articulate change in a very tangible way. So those are some of the backgrounds in which I come without being long-winded. But you said, where do I see we go now, or where we go from here? And I will concur with that this council of this body that we have presently available to us at this particular moment is sufficient enough. We have to create institutions to combat the negative impact and influence and conditioning that this world has done with our children. Not only must we captivate and galvanize the youth, but we also have to have the necessary institutions in place that we're able to develop the wombs of the mothers that the children are not even born yet. So when they come into the world, that we have the necessary environments where we don't have to try to convince them. They're already developed. They're already conditioned. They're already trained to be the producers of their own world and the progenitors of their own reality. That's self-determination. So it is incumbent upon this group right here to continue this great work, that we form the council that is needed, that we're able to enact every decision that we make amongst one another. It is criminal if we're not working together going forward. And I've been pleased and pleasure. It's been in such a pleasure to work with so many people, as I see our brother attorney Malik Zulu Shabazz, who my father worked so intimately with your spiritual father, Dr. Khalid Muhammad. So brother, we got to get to know each other, and on and on and on. So it's so much to be done, but everything will be done because everything has already been done as we lean on our teachers of old, as the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey, Prophet Noble Drew Ali, the great thinkers of old, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, and all of those in this day and time. His Excellency Ben-Ami. The blueprint has been laid, and there's so many others that I can't even articulate this particular moment. But I'm saying those particular names because those who personally shaped and formed me. But I say that we have all the information that we need to move forward. Again, implementation is the key going forward for us, so that my generation understands we have something to walk into, and we don't have to be disillusioned by the allurements of this world, which we know will ultimately take our very lives, if not physically, mentally, spiritually, and culturally. So I end with those words.
Thank you
so much.
You're welcome. Thank you, Prince Yosef. Next, Salia, will you share information about the work that you do, have done, and or would like to do to obtain self-determination for us as Afro-descendants?
Yes, ma'am, and thank you so much. Before I go into my question, I just wanted to quickly respond to Dr. Robinson, and he raised a really good point. I believe Dr. Robinson was making reference to Cow Island, and he was indeed right about Cow Island. And I kind of want to expound on his assertion quite quickly. To clarify my point, my vision for self-determination was external self-determination. Cow Island was an American colony that was off the coast of Haiti, and it was created because President Lincoln didn't believe that black or the ex-slaves or slaves should live amongst whites. He sent them there, and again, it was a white administrator. He paid that white administrator $250,000 to send them to live there. About 5,000 of them, the first group of about 500 ex-slaves were sent there. They were sent to a desolate, unpopulated island where most of them died of thirst. And by February 1864, Lincoln had to send a ship to send them back, to bring them back. So Cow Island was a failure. A colony is not my vision of external self-determination because, again, it involves alien domination and American interference. That's not what my vision of self-determination is. And I also believe, to answer Brother Shabaka's question, all 250 million Afro-descendants deserve external self-determination. It's their human rights, and we all have collectively been through similar or the same experience. So on to answer the question. Some of my accomplishments that I've done, I am the co-founder with my two sisters, Najia Muhammad and Karima Muhammad, of ADYN Global. ADYN Global is an acronym for Afro-Descendant Youth Network Global, Righteous Intelligence in the Fight for Human Rights, Reparations, and Self-Determination for Afro-Descendants. Our goal is to pretty much unite with other Afro-Descendants in the diaspora to raise awareness around the importance of human rights, reparations, and self-determination. I've been speaking since about the age of 16 years old. I embarked on the National Reparations Tour from 2015 to 2016 with Chief Minister Najee Muhammad. It was really exciting for me to go coast to coast to represent the youth and to talk about human rights, reparations, and self-determination, why it's important. As a millennial, this leaving or separating is something that's constantly on the mind of our generation. There's literal movements where young millennials are leaving the United States to live abroad because they do not feel like America is a safe place for them to live. They do not feel safe here. They do not believe that they are the recipients of what the benefits of what American citizenship should provide them as Afro-descendants. They feel like they're second-class citizens. So it would be my hope to continue to unite with those Afro-descendants youth across the diaspora to continue to promote that. And so we can come together as one people. I think one thing that's very important is for us when we get in a room is to unite on our commonality, our common experience, which has been the stripping of our human rights. And that's what I unite on. I don't care about your political affiliation, your religious affiliation. I care about that you and I have went through we share a common experience. And that's what's important to me. And if you have the similar mindset and values about self-determination, I'm open and here, ready and willing to unite with you to get this message out to the people. It is incumbent at this time that we do this because we are the inheritors of this nation. And to be honest, Black millennials and Gen Z, we are currently in a state of crisis economically, socially, spiritually. So that's what I've done. And I'm here if any of you guys need me. Thank you.
Thank you, Salia. Next, we'll have Ida. Ida, will you please share your information about the work that you do, have done, and or would like to do to obtain self-determination for us as Afro-descendants?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. A moment ago, I lost power. So if I disappear, it is not by choice. Over the years at the UN, 3 bodies were listening to the interventions and responding: the Commission on Human Rights, the Subcommission, and the Working Group on Minorities. They helped because they were obligated to respond. Mr. Muhammad's argument fit within the law as a violation of human rights. They organized forums, and through this means, international recognition was achieved. The UN, in their documents, confirmed the existence of Afrodescendants as a new people. A definition was also written and circulated and discussed among the leaders. The leaders were anticipating future forums in which further work could be done. And the future forums never took place because the UN reorganized and closed all three bodies that were helping us. When this took place in 2006, I felt like there was nothing more white advocates could do until a unified claim is made. The questions unanswered are reparations from which governments, entities, institutions, businesses, reparations in the form of what? Property, money, land, precious metals, reparations paid to whom? What evidence determines the identity of an Afrodescendant? Reparations should be lifted into the international arena, as that is a way to show power and self-determination. And you don't need to ask the politicians. 2 months ago, I started looking for some of the white people I used to work with or am familiar with. I found 11 people's contact information and wrote to them expressing my wish and dream of us organizing once again and raising money to finance an international Black family reunion. The fund would pay for the travel of the leaders from North, Central, South America and the islands to a chosen location. It would cover all that is needed, including translators. So far, I have had 5 or 6 responses from the people I contacted. I believe there are those who will help because they agree that the time is now. In my view, supporting this reunion can bring a profound change of heart to white people. White people are beginning to see that the rulers of this world intend to enslave all of humanity. We're catching on to the fact that we've been ruled by fear and deceit, and our rulers are demented and morally dead. Some of us have taken responsibility for reparations as we see it as a step forward spiritually for all of us. We would like to see the family reunite and confront the remaining questions. What do we want? From whom? And who are we? Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you, Ida. Next, we will hear from Brother Let. Brother Let, will you please share with us information about the work that you do, have done, and or would like to do to obtain self-determination for us, Afro-descendants?
Yes. Thank you, President Mukarram. And again, express my greetings and gratitude to the Honorable Silas Muhammad and Queen Ashaki, the Lost Found Nation of Islam, and the Afro-Descendant Nation for convening us here in this space today and providing the opportunity to share and be together and begin and continue, because it's not the first time, and it's part of our responsibility to ensure it's not the last time that we come together to work collaboratively and share and build. And COBRA has focused on mass-based education and organizing of descendants of Africans enslaved in the U.S. Our work has focused on the local, national, and international levels. We have formed local and COBRA chapters throughout the U.S. to allow for the development of local strategies to address local problems and to educate and organize in local communities. And COBRA has also worked on the national level, focused mostly on the introduction and passage of federal legislation to support reparations for Africans formerly enslaved in the U.S. Through the efforts of COBRA, House Resolution 40, commonly known as HR 40, was introduced in the U.S. House of Representatives back in the 80s and has continued to be introduced. It was initially designed to study the issue of to have the federal government study the issue of the impact of African chattel enslavement and its resulting injuries on the descendants of formerly enslaved Africans. H.R. 40 was later revised to include the identification and implementation of remedies for those injuries. More recently, Senate Bill 10 has been introduced as a companion bill to H.R. 40. This means that the same bill language that is in the House, that is in House Bill H.R. 40, has been introduced in the Senate as Senate Bill S10. And COBRA has worked internationally with individuals, organizations, and institutions to promote awareness of and support for reparations for the descendants of Africans formerly enslaved in the U.S. We have formed in COBRA chapters in Ghana, Namibia, and other countries. Now, it's true that our mission is the sole purpose of obtaining reparations for African descendants in the United States. But we work internationally to press the claim for reparations in the U.S. and through that help to educate others, other people of African descent in other countries, other political jurisdictions on the legal, political, and divine and spiritual principles of reparations. We see the blossoming of this important work on reparations and in the reparations movement that has emerged in places like Namibia, where we work closely with the Namibian people, and we see that, they are experiencing some degree of success in terms of both making their own citizens, Namibian citizens, aware of the need, aware of the injury that they suffered and the need for repair and the responsiveness of the German government for their crimes. We see the blooming of the reparations efforts in the growing reparations movement in the Caribbean, where CARICOM has become increasingly active and vocal. More recently, I think there was there was a big media thing about the demands that the people of Barbados made on, I believe it was Charles or one of the folk out of the enslavers in England who came to visit the island. We see a growing demand across the board, and even more loudly from various African nations who are beginning to say, wait a minute, we recognize that, we were injured through colonialism and, it's neo-colonialism and the vestiges of those systems that continue today. And we deserve and demand reparations. A major part of the COBRA initiative has been recently helping to think about and define what we mean when we say reparations, to unpack that label, because we all know that words are abstractions and the word itself does not necessarily convey the intent or the meaning, the understanding that the speaker necessarily is attempting to convey. And as we talked about earlier about the media, all these media forms and the signal to noise ratio, the signal is so low and the noise is so high that oftentimes, as our brother El Hajj Malik Shabazz, Malcolm X told us years ago, that we'll end up loving our enemies and hating our friends. So let me just say a little bit more about some of what COBRA has been doing. And COBRA also has a number of national programs that we engage in to raise awareness and to increase the engagement of community members. Some of those national programs includes our Reparations Awareness Day, which happens annually, and we're working to turn up the volume and amplify, awareness and engagement on that particular day, which is February 25th. In the past, we've had programs like a Year of Black Presence, where back in the 90s, we pulled together a program, a coordinated program to have a presence in the national legislatures, the Capitol Hill, both the House of Representatives and the Senate, in terms of raising awareness and putting on the table, putting on the agenda, making sure that we were at the table and not just on the menu when it came to issues like reparations and what's happening federally. And so we had the Year of Black Presence, where we created a campaign to make sure that our presence
Excuse me,
was
Brother
there.
Ladd.
Yes.
Thank you. We're well over the time. Could you please finish your last thought? And
Yes.
then we'll move on. Thank you.
Okay. We're currently we're currently in the development phase of developing a healing retreat center in Mississippi to provide social justice activists an opportunity to come and sort of, be rejuvenated. We're also kicking off a boots on the ground or organizing initiative where we're doing outreach and refocusing on going deeper into communities. And also, we have a main focus that will be to continue our coalition building with other organizations that share common values and that identify common interests. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Ladd. So at this time, we have exceeded our time a bit. I do want to give Pastor Victoria time in this space for the Q&A. I'm going to ask that our other invited guests, if you have questions or comments, to make sure that those are written down. If we don't get a chance to address them here today in the space, we will provide them to the panelists so that they can address those. And we will also seek to share their answers publicly for the audience as well, the viewing audience. Thank you. Pastor Victoria, you may comment or ask a question on either of whichever one is burning for you, either topic. Whichever question or comment you have, that's the burning question or comment that you want to share. I would like for you to take a couple of minutes, and then whoever you direct it to, for that person to take a couple of minutes as well, and then we'll move on to topic 3.
Thank you, Fred. Thank you, Dr. Mukaram. I really appreciate that. And this is extremely inspiring. And I do have a couple of comments, and I wrote a question. I thought I didn't think I'd get a chance to ask it because it was on the other topic. I'll try to see if I can find it in my notes. But in the meantime, I really, I do have a question. Queen Mashaki Muhammad, you mentioned a process. I believe it was early in my notes, so I didn't get it all, but I believe you mentioned a process whereby a nation can go on and be established or get established and get support, certain supports from other nations. I believe I heard that, but I want to be sure because I don't know if I'll get a chance to speak again before you answer that, Queen Mashaki. I do want to point out, I love the idea and the reality that we have everything that we need to do everything we need to do right now. That has been a driving message of today. And I want to point out to some may be aware and others may not be aware that there is a Black-owned social media platform that I believe is important to know about. And it's OBT, which you could say stands for Our Black Truth. I would like if you, OBT Social, I'm going to ask you to please put that in your notes and to go and set up an account, become very familiar with it, because I thought about Prince Joseph's comment about energy and being sure that as we talk about self-determination, that we look at every aspect of that self-determination and what it really means. I invite you to look at that platform. We don't have time to go into it right now, but please know that we do have the capability to have our own cyber nation. Our young people are living in a cyber universe right now. We need to go there with them, and we have a way to do it. I just want to throw that out there, and it's something to really grasp. So Queen Mashaki, and there was another person that mentioned something similar, but
Pastor Victoria,
my time is up.
Yes, ma'am. So if we could have Queen Mashaki respond to your question that you asked.
Yes.
And Queen Mashaki, if you could please respond to Pastor Victoria's question within 2 minutes, that would be great, so we can move on to topic 2. Thank you, Pastor Victoria.
Thank you.
Okay, Queen Mashaki.
Right, I'll do the best I can in a 2-minute span. But the Principality of Liechtenstein was put out there to us as an example, because it's like a city-state. And since we as Black people have not decided where we want to be, we do know that we need some land. And I just want you to remember that we would not have to start from the ground in order to exist as a nation, wherever it might be. If we choose a country and within that country they already have services set up, then we can make contract with those people in that country and have services like ambulance service, medical attention services, electrical services, that sort of thing. Police department services, and whatever we end up being, we will always have to keep in mind that we might be a nation within a nation, like we are in the United States. And whatever laws that we have as a people for ourselves will also have to coordinate in the host country that we sit in. So whether we're here in the United States or should we end up in, say, Saudi Arabia, keep in mind, my people, that you will work with the government in which you're in until we have some total autonomy of our own. But one of the things that I want you to remember is that we don't want to trade slave masters. We don't want to take out the white slave master and end up with an Arab slave master or an African slave master. So just keep that in mind. We want to be our own nation. We can do this. It's just a matter of contract negotiations. Thank you.
Thank you, Queen Mashaki. That was perfect timing. Next, we will move into our third topic. Based on where you view us now as a people, where do you think we should go from here? Dr. Robinson?
Thank you very much, President Dr. McConnell. It's been great being here today, and I really enjoyed it. And I think this is the start of something big, as they say. We're talking about self-determination, and as a result of a process that everyone goes through, we've kind of developed our own perspectives of how we should move forward. And one of the biggest things we need to do is develop a plan. You know, you can talk, all day and all night, but if you don't have a plan, it's unlikely that you're going to make much progress. And that's what we've been about. So let me just get directly to the points that I wanted to make. And it's already been said. It appears that social media, the internet, have conspired together to create a great awakening among Afro-descendants. And that's important. But we cannot keep operating with just a few bodies here and there, dispersed bodies here and there, trying to achieve self-determination, one head body and small bodies dispersed all over the place. We need to get unified. And the way to get unified is to make sure that we have that media platform. She said it was OBT Social, not sure. We say it could be Sankofa Revolutionary Radio, but we need to be able to get the idea for all Afro-descendants in the United States of America and elsewhere for that matter, whether it be a household, a church, a mosque, a social organization, a school, a club, a university, it doesn't matter. They need to be imbued with the idea of achieving restoration and self-determination. We got to get that into the hearts and minds of our people. So what do we need to do? We need to not only develop that media platform that I've talked about, but we also need to build the unity and trust that I've talked about. And so we really have to work hard to build that unity and trust. And I want to be a part of that process. The National Black Planning Council that this could be part of, the organization represented here could be a part of, needs to develop that National Black Council or Congress. But to make it happen, there has to be unity and trust. And then we believe that it is so important that we communicate through that media platform, that we develop the National Black Council or Congress, and that we have unity and trust. And we believe that if we can put those three things together, and if we have a sound strategic plan, then we can make real progress. Without those ingredients, it's not going to happen. Unfortunately, generations in the future will point to us and say they didn't do what they should do. But if we develop the strong strategic plan, develop the Congress or the Council, have the media platform, and develop unity and trust, then we certainly will rise. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. And I look forward to the Q&A, but most importantly, I look forward to hearing the Most Honorable Salas Muhammad's comments later this morning.
Thank you, Dr. Robinson. Next, we will have Dr. Ray speak on, based on where you view us now as a people, where do you think we should go from here?
Well, I've told my students, I'll be brief because I don't want to get the bell on me, but, I think we need someone to organize the organizations. We have enough Black organizations on earth. We have, people will approach me, can you be on my board? We've got enough organizations. Someone needs to organize the organizations. And it doesn't mean you give up your identity, but send a representative there at some annual meeting. The second thing is that I think we should focus on the African nations that are opening their doors to Africans in the diaspora. There's these years of returns that have occurred in Ghana as well as in Nigeria. And I think we should really cultivate strong ties with those organizations. And then on an individual level, I think that all of us should have an individual Pan-African project that directly does something on the continent. It can be, adopting a school in Africa. It can be buying malaria nets for our children who are dying in huge numbers on the continent from that dreaded disease. So I think those three things: organize the organizations, focus on the nations that are opening their doors to Africans, here, you know, in the diaspora, and finally having an individual Pan-African project?
Thank you, Dr. Ray. Queen Mashaki, will you share with us, based on where you view us now as a people, where do you think we should go from here?
Yes, I was introduced not too long ago to a book called From Here to Equality. And it's written by Professor William Darity and his wife, A. Christian. And they come out of the University of North Carolina. And they have spent 10 years putting together a plan for us getting reparations. A lot of work has gone into that. And what I think we need to, I see you, Brooks Robinson. I thought that a lot of work had gone into that study. And what we need to do is have people like Brooks Robinson add to the study that's already been done, especially in the terms of land, because that's something that needed more attention in that study that was done. But we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We don't need to calculate the cost of reparations with interest. We don't need to figure in what we as attorneys call pain and suffering. That's been done. All we need to do is bring it up to date. And I want to give you warning as to something else that's going on out there, because I recently listened to a program by Professor Eddie S. Claude Jr. out of Princeton, and he wrote a book on Black democracy in Black. And it was very interesting. And he presented the gap in between the cultural, not cultural, but monetary values between Blacks and whites. And after he introduced his book and spoke of it, they had a Q&A period. And a Black man came out of the audience named John Chase. And he hit us with something that was kind of breathtaking. He said that he had been paid by a group of Caucasians to write up our reparations for us. And that this is being done and is going to be released before the end of this year is out. They have asked him to discuss 216 points of injury. That is including money, housing, education, discriminating, and decriminalizing the payment of child support. Now, that's something that we need to be on guard against. There might be some points of interest, but we cannot and should not allow any other nation of people to write reparations for us. We're the ones that we experienced slavery. They didn't. This is one of the things we had as a clash in the UN when they talk about people of African descent. We found out that the definition for that and the inclusion of that would include Africans who had never experienced slavery. And we got one of their special rapporteurs, a professional by the name of Dudu, that finally began to realize what it is that he could not add to that because he had never been a slave. I'm going to leave that for my husband, Silas Muhammad, to give more information about. But these are the things that we need to look at in the future and guard against.
Thank you, Queen Mashaki. Brother Shaka, will you share with us, based on where you view us now as a people, where do you think we should go from here? Brother Shaka, your mic is off. Thank you.
I remember our brother Dale Jones was asked to describe the conditions of our people. And though he loved our people, he summed it up in a very explicit term. We catching hell. All of our organizations of any significance have been either infiltrated or they have been destroyed. The leadership has been assassinated. It's all around the world. White supremacy is not going to go away without African people really coming together. Our problems are massive, economically, politically, socially, spiritually, massive. And when you have massive problems, you must have a massive solution. And sometimes the leadership that we have is so dependent on outside resources until we really don't look inside. I remember our brother Kwame Ture, or some might know him as Stokely Carmichael, said, Black people aren't poor. He said, we're just poorly organized. So I think that's the real challenge of how do we get organized? Yama Marcus Garvey said, our faith must be confidence in ourselves. So what does that mean? That means that, as he said, what man has done, man can do. What women have done, women can do. So when we look out into the world and we see what people have done, we have to have the attitude that we can do it too. We can learn from the world. We can learn from history. So some of us dismiss the movements in our history because we're lazy. Because sometimes we just don't want to spend the time and energy that it takes to understand the greatest leaders, the greatest movements, the greatest accomplishments that our people have been involved with and that other people have been involved with too. The white man is not superior to us. The Europeans and all that they have accomplished, they stole from Africa. They stole our arts and sciences. And then they put them back out there like they were the inventors. They were the creators. And now it's a question of when are we going to get our stuff back? Now, white supremacy is a worldwide system. And we must have a worldwide system. I say Africans must have their own worldwide economic, political, military system. And in order to do that, we got to think bigger than the way we've been thinking. Because sometimes the leadership in the other race that we follow, they lead us on the path that they control. Malcolm made that clear. He said they put us on this treadmill. We think we're going forward because the treadmill is moving backwards, but we're really standing still. So what is our condition? We're standing still. Now, I agree with the brother. There are hundreds of African and African American and African descendant organizations that have their conventions. They have their conferences. We have to make sure, as in an organizing effort, that we bring to their table, invite them to have a discussion on the same thing that we're discussing here, such as what is the condition of the people? And ask them to be honest. Because some of us are just luring our people to sleep. We give them fake dreams and fake hopes on integration and assimilation. We lie to the people. We deceive the people. And oftentimes we find our youth hating us because they know we're deceiving them. We think they can't see what's happening. We think that they can't see that a lot of the parents are catching hell. They can see that. They're empathetic enough to know when mama ain't happy and dad ain't happy, not doing well. But at the same time, they ask themselves, well, how do we eat
because they want to eat too. They ain't going to voluntarily starve to death. So what do? They try to find means by which they can go and get the things that they need. Yeah, to put the Nikes on their feet, but to put food in their stomachs. And so a new approach has to be based on seeing a bigger picture than the one that we've been looking at. To be able to say, if the problem is massive everywhere, Chicago, Detroit, Alabama, Mississippi, Lagos, if the problem is the same in Egypt, Morocco, Algeria, if the problem is the same in Brazil and Belize, if the problem is the same among African people all over the world, then who could possibly be having a serious conversation and not taking those people into consideration? So lastly, if the African is to be serious, we have to study everything. Yama Marcus Garvey teaches us that we must study 4 hours a day. That's just the reading part. Why? Because it's too much to know. There's too much that the enemy is doing against us every day, every hour, every second. He doesn't sleep because he's trying to maintain his system. And until we get to the point, again, that we are willing to build our own system, then it will mean that we have to employ similar tactics. We have to make sacrifices. We have to you have to stop sleeping so long and stop eating so much and stop wasting so much and engage the children. They want to hear from us. They don't know who Malik El-Shabazz is. They don't really know who Malcolm is. Why? Because they ain't had a book and we don't talk to them.
Excuse me, Brother Shaka. Yes. Could you finish your last thought? And thank you so much.
We go to the youth and we take the knowledge that we have and make sure we package it and bring it to our people. They're on your block. They're right down the street. They're next door. They're in the apartment above you. They're right around the corner and they're waiting on you to do one or two things. Learn from you, or you learn from them. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Brother Shaka. Next, Attorney Malik, will you share with us?
Yes, ma'am, I will.
Yes, sir. Based on where you view us now as a people, where do you think we should go from here?
Thank you, ma'am. I will, hold on a second. Thank you, ma'am. I apologize for not coming on video right now. I'm driving, but I'm deeply into the conversation and I'm looking forward to hearing from the Honorable Silas Muhammad.
Yes, okay. Sir. Be safe driving.
I first of all want to thank every organizational leader here that has come on this conference call. I'll take the question as you saying, where do you see us? And I'll define the us as organizational leaders, because I believe that the critical question from this meeting would be two questions. One, whether this meeting is for informational and educational purposes, or two, whether this is for further organizational purposes of achieving that which we have discussed today. If it's primarily informational and educational, I think an excellent job has been done, and that our assignment for the future would be to spread this message and to make sure that everybody hears it, to understand the important issues that have been discussed, and that would be fine. But if we were to reach a higher level, according to my level of experience, because I've been around for some years and I've been in many different coalitions, I've been in meetings, I've been in efforts, I've been a part of the Indaba, Reparations movement, human rights movements, and I think that we're challenged at this point where if we talk about where we're going, I think that we need to be specific if we have to go somewhere. Now, we don't have to go anywhere. This could be, again, for informational, educational purposes. That's fine with me. Now, if a campaign is going to be developed, if this is going to be a campaign for self-determination and reparations, then I would be eager to participate, to be a part of a campaign where these distinguished organizations and leaders would actually define where the fight is going to be and be about fighting for it. I think the gentleman from leader of Cobra have put forth a proposition of a vote or a plebiscite. That would be just one thing that I would again recommend that that this body could campaign on to reach our people so they can understand what self-determination is, so it's not so ambiguous, and to specifically be able to gather their information and commit them to a vote, a registered vote that could be used to whatever, I guess, whichever way we're going with this. Okay, if there are other recommendations here or whatever actions we take, I believe that we're going to have to, we're going to have to campaign. And therefore, I would commit that if such campaign is developed, that you can count on the support of Malik Shabazz. You can count on the support of Black Lawyers for Justice. You can count on the support of the New Black Panther Party. You can count on the support of any number of Black nationalist organizations throughout America. Many of them active. Some of them are armed in terms of, we're going to need an army if we're going to have a nation. And others are in the civil rights field. So, I have a number of organizations, I believe, that would be a part of any future campaigns based on any specific plans. And that's what I offer here. I'm just here to say that if we go forward with a specific plans or campaign, that the Afrodescendant Nation, the Honorable Silas Muhammad, that you all can count on me. You can count on the organizations I represent. You can count on me as a fighter to give it all I got and to use any resources that I have, either in the media, the press, or grassroots, or whatever it is. I'm committed, and you have a body of organizations that will be committed to further campaign so we can achieve what we're talking about. I thank you so much, and I yield the floor.
Thank you, Attorney Malik. Next, Prince Yosef, will you share with us, based on where you view us now as a people, where do you think we should go from here?
Yes, ma'am. I too, if I understand the question correctly, we're talking about collectively as Black people on the continent, throughout the diaspora, or if you're talking about where do we move as a body of leadership, or those who have been equipped with the necessary experience and knowledge that is needed to propel us forward. I will try to answer both very briefly. As a people, we have to heal. And I don't mean to be ambiguous, but we heal in the regards of refocusing the mending of the gap between the generations, that we establish the necessary trust, the necessary line of communication, understanding, and a valuable plan that will produce the necessary outcome by allowing the youth to have trust in the elders and the elders to have trust in the youth. So then not 1 ounce of the sacrifice that has been made by those who preceded us has been in vain or goes to waste, because my generation does not understand what the struggle, what the fight, what the sacrifice was for. Therefore, we are rendered victims unto the conditioning and the contextualization of white supremacy and the domination of this Euro-Gentile world. But as a body of leadership, starting with this particular group, I believe it is incumbent upon us to use what we already have and to push that with all of the energy that we have and all of the resources that we have available to us. Again, as I've stated and many of others have stated, we have all that we need. Maybe, just maybe, we're not using it right, or we're not using it to its full capacity. If the Honorable Silas Muhammad is the senior authority amongst this group, which I humbly say and believe he is, if he has established not using the platform of the Nation of Islam, but using a platform that is all encompassing, which is the Afrodescendant Nation, which we all have agreed that we are a part of, because it's a lineage. We have to push the agenda of the Afro-Descendant Nation to bring into existence the desired change that is needed. Then we put on paper, we create living, breathing documents that identify in which the structure that we will go about said responsibilities that will be allocated to each individual depending on their particular level of expertise or experience, and then what each one will bring to the overall group to produce the greater outcome, whether it's reparations, whether it's establishment of a land that we have created as sovereign, that irrespective to what we believe or where we are on the planet, we have a home base, which other nations have done. Most recently, the state of Israel, but we can go on and on and on, that we have a home base. See, these are the things that we need to do, which we've all attempted, which we in my spiritual community and Hebrew Israelite community in Dimona has attempted to done under the auspices of the kingdom of God. But some people may find that as a religious organization based on the verbiage that we use. That's fine. But we are aligned with the same precepts and tenets of the Afro-Descendant Nation. So if that's the name in which we go under, that's fine as well. But we have to enact those core principles and goals which we know will bring us our sovereignty. And so that's what I would purport is the best course of action for this particular group, that we take the guidance and leadership of the Honorable Salis Muhammad, that we use all of what he has done over the past 30 plus years relative to United Nations and Geneva and the development of Afro-Descendant Nation. Him and the Queen have established a beautiful platform, and then now we bring all of our expertise, our experience, our knowledge, and we fuel it so it propels us into a future that our children's children will have a place that they'll be able to thrive in, that we can contextualize, and we don't have to be worried about the contextualization of our open and outright enemies. And I close on that point.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, Prince Yosef. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Salia, will you please share with us, based on where you view us now as a people, where do you think we should go from here?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. To answer the question, I think the first step would be begin with meeting again to discuss in detail what we want in terms of self-determination. I believe that's the first step that we need to take. I believe we should have organized in a fashion similar to the Conference on Jewish Material Claims Against Germany. They were an umbrella organization that was established in New York in 1951 of about 23 national and international Jewish organizations that represented the diaspora of Jewish people that lived in the West. Their aim was to obtain funds for relief, rehabilitation, and resettlement of Jewish victims of Nazi persecution and the rebuilding of Jewish communal life, and to obtain indemnification for injuries inflicted upon the victims of Nazi persecution and restitution for properties confiscated by the Nazis. And I only use them as a reference, or we can use the 5 civilized tribes for the indigenous people. They came together regardless of what sect of Judaism that they practice or what tribe they came from, reference to the indigenous people, to unite, to make a united front for a common shared experience. And I think it's imperative that we do the same. So I think my answer would be, I know my answer would be for us to come collectively for a Black united front. And I quickly want to just read a few quotes from our leaders that talked about unity. If anything state-worthy is to be done, it must be done through unity. Quote from Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. Where there is unity, there is strength. Together we stand, and divided we fall. The Honorable Noble Jew Ali. If a small, well-twisted cord is hard to break, then how much harder is it to break 100 such well-twisted cords, well-twisted into one? We are well educated in the knowledge of what the slave masters dislike of us. If they are afraid of our unity as one nation of brotherhood, then why should we not unite? The Honorable Elijah Muhammad. There has never been a solid, unified, and determined thrust to make justice a reality for Afro-Americans, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I think it's time that we make do on those requests and those quotes that they said. I would not want their sacrifices to be in vain. I think the time is now. It's imperative. It is critical, mission critical. We're in ICU as a people. COVID, we on a ventilator right now as a people. COVID is really taking our people to even more critical place. So I think the time is now. And I would like this, and I'm sure this is not an educational moment. This is, I think, the first step in actualizing what we believe in regards to self-determination. Thank you.
Thank you, Salia. Ida, based on where you view us now as Afro-descendant people, where do you think we should go from here?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Slavery took your identity. That was death and perhaps the reason for disunity. You are creating a new identity that is new life, and reparations are due to support this birth. At the UN, they call it ethnogenesis. Please move ahead. You have all of the skill and expertise and knowledge that is needed to guide the world in a new direction. It's time for a new mind, a new moral leadership. The leaders of this world, the Western mind that has ruled this world like a parasite for hundreds of years, stealing and plundering, and they don't intend to stop. If there ever was a living devil, this is it. A bit of wisdom that was given to me by Mr. Muhammad: when your opponent is much more powerful than you and they block the door, you can go under the opposition. An international Black family reunion is not a confrontation. It is a jubilee. After 400 plus years, you meet your family again. You bring scholars, leaders, financial experts, historians, spiritual guides. The weapon that will defeat them is your quiet self-determination. Would the fund I propose have a chance of raising enough money? First, the account has to be set up in the hands of trusted people chosen by Black leaders. I don't know who that is and would ask you to think about it. The Black Lives Matter movement certainly demonstrated what not to do. I believe people will donate if they see support from Black leaders and some excitement about the reunion. I would hope to see it catch on among the white youth who marched and donated to Black Lives Matter, and many others who are inspired by the possibility of such an event. The organizing of the family reunion would involve a lot of work and dedicated effort. A lot of thought would have to go in, but it can be done. Like I told the white group, I realize this is a wish and a dream, but it is possible. And if it is to occur, now is the time. I want to see you take your place in the world. If any group of people is capable of leading us to our humanity, it is you. I keep saying to white people, we have to turn this boat around. Go in the opposite direction of our leaders. Stop taking. Go toward our humanity. Go toward justice and an end to the pillaging and plundering of this earth. I appreciate being able to present these thoughts to you. I thank you all for inviting me. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you, Ida. Brother Let, will you share with us, based on where you view us now as a people, where do you think we should go from here?
Thank you. We have a clear path forward, which is unity. We must seek, promote, and provide unity. And doing that is an internal reparations project. We must understand clearly what reparations mean. Reparations means repair. And in Cobra states that we must have full repair. And COBRA has identified 5 injury areas: peoplehood or nationhood, which is culture and identity; health, both physical and mental; education; criminal punishment, not criminal justice; and poverty and wealth. The international community has identified 5 remedy areas for reparations: restitution, rehabilitation, compensation, cessation or guarantee of non-repeat, and satisfaction. So full repair means that all 5 injury areas must be remedied. One example that I want to lift up is compensation. Most people, when they think about compensation, when they think about reparations, it automatically translates in most people's mind about compensation. And reparations is not about a broken labor contract. It's about a broken human covenant. Repair must include compensation. Compensation is necessary, but compensation alone is insufficient. We must have full repair. Where we go from here is to promote insight and understanding that reparations is repair, and we, the descendants of Africans formerly enslaved in the U.S., require and demand full repair. This includes internal repair, which many of the previous speakers have spoken about, as well as external resources in order for us to achieve full repair. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Lett. We have a few minutes before the Honorable Salas Muhammad comes on for his providing his information on the 3 topics. So we will go backwards up for maybe 2 of our invited guests to share one comment and or question. But it will be a hard stop, so please, if I interrupt you, please respect the time. Thank you. Okay, we will go back up to Ajani.
Okay, I'm speaking from your mic again, not to cause interruption. I recall in the 1990s at a small meeting in Atlanta, where the Honorable Salas Muhammad said that he learned from traveling abroad that part of self-determination is self-identifying. And inside of that, he said that he wanted me to put a campaign out to let our people know that we should identify as lost found peoples. Well, that didn't go that well. Our people said, I'm not lost. I know where I'm from. Long story short, I went to a meeting in Santiago, Chile in 1998. Brothers and sisters there from South America and Central America had already self-identified as Afrodescendant. So this term was being used. But in my passion to fulfill the Honorable Salas Muhammad's words and try to put forth lost found people as I named, I missed that. But in the documentation that I returned to the United States with was that term Afrodescendant. And so I will always be a member of the Lost Found Nation of Islam, but I gave up Lost Found Nation of Islam as my identity, and I laid claim to Afrodescendant. And so I think going forward, if we would bring all organizations under the umbrella of Afrodescendant and we self-identify, then not only were we deracinated here in our culture, in the United States, but so with our brothers and sisters in Brazil, Central America, and South America, who all lay claim to that term, and it unites 250 million of us under the term. And with that, I'm self-identifying as a part of self-determination. And I see, where do we go from here? We go under the umbrella of Afro-descendants, and we all get this job done. Thank you, and submit.
Thank you, Ajani, for that comment. And I have received message for the hard stop now, so I'm going to have come before you in this presence the reason that we're all here today, the Honorable Salas Muhammad. Mr. Muhammad?
Yes. Assalamu alaikum to all of you. I'm extremely happy burning up inside. I'm really ready to go. I thank each and every one of you dearly from my heart. And to prove it, I offer you all a bowl of beans at my expense. I especially want to say to President Mukram and to Pastor Victoria, thank you for making my dream come true. Nationality. Afrodescendants. People of African descent versus people of Afrodescendants. In UN, we had traveled there maybe 2 or 3 times at this particular time that I'm talking about. And there was a table with subcommissions sitting around it called People of African Descent. While we already had a table with people, Afrodescendants. We thought that they were the same thing at first. We went over to people of African descent. We had been at Afrodescendant. This table, people African descent, we stopped it twice. And the subcommission or the officers over
Working group on minorities.
they whispered in my ear, no, the people African descent. You are Afro-descendant. Go to that table. And we eventually went back to our original table. People of African descent, I had this argument there in the UN, and I will get a chance to get into that argument as we proceed. But first, let's understand nationality, Afro-descendant. In the Bible, at chapter 15, Genesis 15, verse 13, you will notice that a people's going to be in bondage in a strange land for 400 years, a land that's not their own. We, Afro-descendants, have done that. We have, in fact, did that. We have fulfilled that prophecy. And now we are legally and morally due reparations. No morally sane argument can refute this historical claim. When, not if, we receive our reparations, we want a land that we can call our own. We call upon Saudi Arabia to answer this need. For we are the seed of Abraham and Ishmael. Saudi Arabia erred in the past when it participated with and created the homeland for the Jewish people. It can now, Saudi Arabia can now correct some of its mistakes in the fulfillment of books, both books, Holy Quran and Bible. We entered the United Nations in 1992. My wife, Harriet Abubakar, Esquire, and me. Since Black people are damaged beginning in 1555 to today, 2022, we are the plaintiff. And the governments of Black people in America and the Americas are the defendant. We sought a neutral, unbiased tribunal, a third party to hear our case. The United Nations agreed with us, or with our thinking, in 2002. Also, the United Nations aided in embellishing our name, Afrodescendant minority, in 2002, and recorded the same in a UN document, Afrodescendant, descendants of Caucasian blood and of African blood, both in the America and the Americas, as plantation slavery diaspora, numbering 250 million. No question is raised as to the degree of Black blood, of white blood. This new minority is both Black and white. We are the new Black minority. We here will focus on one nation at a time. You Afro-descendants, Africans who were in America, and those nations similarly situated are asked to do what no nation of people in the history of man has ever been asked to do. There is no precedent to follow, no blueprint, nor is there a definite rule to follow. You have only the Bible prophecy of 400 years of slavery and affliction to be observed. Our life experiences is our truth, says this prophecy. has been fulfilled. Well, we all are on edge. Our existence is a living truth. Afrodescendants pretends not any one of you in the UN in 2002, consciously thinking of us as a independent nation. You may have been thinking we are a minority nation only. Well, my wife and I have been thinking about an independent nation since 1956 and 1959, respectively, to the present date. It's not realized, or you are that a mixture of black and white blood. That's what you are. You don't like talking about it. My wife, Harriet Muhammad, or Abu Bakr Esquire, and me, we are of the Lost Found Nation of Islam. We are you. The once enslaved African, my wife and me, were the same as you. In my wife's case, her people are lighter, brighter, damn near whiter, but variety, who suffers from some of those color issues. I had one other statement in there that I wanted to make. My wife took it out. But she's sitting here. I think I'll go ahead and make it. I don't mean an embarrassment to her, but it more illustrates the point that I'm trying to make. My wife's grandmother in her 90s had difficulty with her mind and is placed in an old folks' home. Her son came in to give her a bite to eat. And she said, "Get this darky away from me." This shows you we have a mental problem. We Black people, we are part white, we are part Black. If that's a problem for you, get over it. Think about it. What can you do about it? You're here now.
Look at brother.
Here we are talking about the new Black nation that has come about through rape and intermarriage. The mixing of blood, Black, white blood, and Black blood are in you. Is in me, also is in you. Not only the mixing of blood, but also a mixing of experiences of the mind. Africans were brought over here to this wilderness of North America in the year 1555 and made slaves. Abraham Lincoln freed the so-called Negro or colored people in the year 1865. The mental, bamboozled, dead, once African had been enslaved here at that time for 310 years. Now, when we say mentally dead, we mean a person who does not know his own language, does not know his own original name, and is unable to speak his own language with other of his own kind. Our original language have been bamboozled away from us and is in disarray. In many different thoughts, experiences, including our religious belief, how the ex-slaves confused. We must make ourselves human again in accordance with UN, United Nations, defined definition of human being. Religion has this new nation in a state of disarray and confusion when it comes to religion or Christianity, when it comes to Orthodox Islam. Can a person whose mind has been shattered or cannot speak his own language know what it sounds like or know what his name sounds like? Can a person really say that Christianity or Orthodox Islam is his or her religion? His mind or her mind has been systematically destroyed. They cannot conclude that Christianity or Orthodox Islam is his or her religion. Even the learned Abraham Lincoln, President of the American government, said, "The Bible is not my book, nor Christianity my profession. I could never give assent or approval agreement to the long, complicated statements of Christian dogma." You can find this in the speeches 1982 to 1858, 1832 to 1858. Thus, The slave whose mind is systematically destroyed does not know what his real name or tongue should sound like. Has the original man, African, been destroyed, exposed to ethnogenesis, or has his mind awakened? If you are Afro-descendants, your mind has been awakened or is awakening. Afro-descendant. You are a mixture of black blood and of white blood. The new Black nation. It's difficult to think over that when you are a Muslim, having lived the life of a Muslim. When you are a Black person, really, it's hard to think that you are not 100% Black. You also got white blood in you. You got the white color in you. Look at your grandmother, grandfather, your aunt, your uncles. Think over that. You are part Black blood, part white blood. Now we're not talking about the degree of Black blood in you. We're not talking about the degree of white blood that's in you or color. We're talking about the new nation, what has come about through rape, through mixed breeding. The new nation is here. Think over it. Moreover, President Lincoln stated, "Let us keep them here as our underlings." He knew we would serve them. They have afflicted us extraordinarily well beyond 1865. Afflict and inflict means to impose something unpleasant, unwanted on another. White man inflicted heavy casualties on the Negro, his enemy, as he sees us as his enemy. In line with the prophecies of the Bible. See 467 years of slave history, including George Floyd and a multitude of others. Does the Black man view the white man as his enemy? Only an enemy would purposefully afflict or inflict another. The Bible prophet goes on to state, "And that nation whom they shall inflict will I judge, and afterwards will they come out with great substance. Can this prophecy be made a reality? By our exodus from America? Can it be made? Now we have did or done or after the 400 years of hell beating, slavery, but we have not exited. We are still here. In order to say we are as slave children complete, we must exit America. Our exit is called for in that prophecy. Can we exit America and make that prophecy our word? Who wrote the book? If you or your mother, or grandmother, grandmother, mother, if your people wrote the book, let's fulfill it. Yes, it can happen. Oh, yes. We can exit America. We believe we are ready to see the rest of the prophecies of the Bible and Quran fulfilled. Self-determination is our aim. We are all the lost found nation of Islam, including those Muslims with Minister Louis Farrakhan, who was asked by me via my wife on February 27th, 1994, to represent us at the UN. I today am asking all of you, Minister Louis Farrakhan and those with him, those with me, Cyrus Muhammad, those who are or were with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the Hebrew Israelites, Moore Science Temple, Marcus Garvey, Anita Bell, or Led and Cobra. To you who are with Black Lives Matter, white females, those with Malik Shabazz, the Black Panther Party.
Yes, sir.
White females, all who are in America's government. Governments. Including your relatives, your friends, and you women of the world, all the yellow nations, red nations, brown nations, and all black nations, women who think as you do worldwide. Will you aid? Will you aid in our trying to bring peace to earth? We're trying to bring peace to earth. I said women because men are generally subject to fight over fish, just to prove who is man, except those men who know. In the year 1930, July 4th, the so-called African American, this new budding nation, had been mentally dead to the knowledge of self 379 years until he came. Pick up the book, Message to the Black Man, page 55, paragraphs 2 through 4. It's only when we come to America and learn the name our people are going by that we discover a whole nation of people, of 20 million people, black people, is going by the wrong name. It's going by the names of white people. How can a so-called Negro in 1930 or African American in 2020 say that his name is Sam Jones, a white man's name with roots in Europe, when he is a black man whose roots are in Africa or Asia? My poor, deceived, bamboozled, blind, deaf, and dumb people are going by the wrong name. As in the movie Roots, with a whip in his hand, the slave master said, speaking to a captured African, "Your name is Toby." "No," says Toby, "my name is Kuti Kinde. Until my people accept the truth of identity, accept the names of our people and nation, we will never be respected because of this alone." Self-identity. Who are the Afro-descendants? They in the UN, there are human rights many nations have come together and have decided on what these human rights of each and every individual should be or ought to be. And they voted on it. The most important one of these is the language. Now, they all are important, but the one that I want to deal with you on is mother tongue. This is UN language, UN law. These rights are governed by the United Nations, they're not exactly looked on with favor with I'm talking UN law, not US law, not Great Britain law. I'm talking about the law that governs the whole world. The UN law, the international law, what the government of the entire world. It's called ICCPR. The right to your own language, right to culture, right to speak your language with other people of your kind. But here, your language. Every person has an inherent right to speak his or her mother tongue. Now, what do I mean, mother tongue? What you heard your mother first say to you when you were a child. Your mother is speaking your language to you that you should know, learn, be educated in, such as Chinese, Japanese, or Indian. A black man, Nigerian, Ugandan, you do not know your language. Why? It was taken away. It was taken away. We, my wife and I, spent 17 years in the UN and around its seminars, spelling that out to the UN that you have violated your own law. We want reparations. Not that you are to pay reparations, but we want reparations. We need a name to file suit in. Not that language that we speak to the UN. We didn't speak the exact language that I'm giving you. Now I'm putting it all in a capsule. We had lost the knowledge of that language. We spoke English, and other Africans, or once Africans from Brazil, spoke Spanish or Portuguese. Some Africans spoke Spanish. In the meetings that we held in Geneva, in Honduras, in South America, with UN support or UN sanctioned meetings, we met with 19 nations discussing what our name should be called. And they came up with the name Afrodescendants. My wife was present too. I am trying to force the lost found people. For about a whole week long, I'm arguing lost found people. They are arguing Afro-descendants. On that Friday, the close of the week, I'm told that you have a meeting tonight at the restaurant. I had argued all day long that we should not be called just Afro-descendants. We need a definition for that name. What is the definition of the word Afro-descendant? How do you define it? You can't say people of African descent. Those people come over here freely of their own thoughts, on their own free will. We are not people of African descent. We are Afro-descendants. What is the definition for Afro-descendants? The group had no definition for people of Afro-descent. Knowing that I had a meeting that night with the president of the group that I'm with, I sat down and with my wife and scrambled to write out to voice out a definition. Both myself and wife and Ida Hakeem was the acting secretary. She wrote down on a piece of paper what we had come up with as definition for the words Afro-descendants. This is the time that I have spoken to you. At other times, I called it my acquiescing, or our acquiescing from lost found people to Afro-descendant. I did meet that night with the president, a Cuban lady, just sat across in front of me, a UN interpreter sat to my left, my wife sat to my right. I sat in front of the president, and she asked, "What do you want to see me about?" Or my thought was, "I didn't ask to see you. I'm told I got a meeting. I'm here for that." She said, what do I want to see you about? I just put my hand in my pocket, knowing that she didn't speak English. I passed it, the note that I had on to UN interpreter. And he read off the first definition. African descent, people who were forcibly dispossessed of their homeland, Africa. I saw a little smirk on her face. And I told him, read on. He's reading in Spanish. Spanish to her. Were transported to America and the diaspora for the purposes of enslavement. I saw another little smirk on her face. Were subjected to slavery. I saw a bigger smirk on her face. were subjected to forced mixed breeding and rape, having experienced through force the loss of mother tongue. At this point in time, I see her not laughing, but a smile, smirk on her face. I'm saying to myself, my definition of work. When we got through with the definition, she reached across the table and gave me a big Cuban hug. I gave her a black hug. And after that, all the people in the restaurant were just watching us at the table. They were our audience. They had been at the meeting earlier today. They're happy to see me get my butt whooped. Because I don't know it at that time, but I am an ugly American. And they don't want to follow no ugly American. I got my suit on, whatever, and I'm doing the American thing. You know? I'm dressing like I always dress, with the suit on. They are not as kept up with American as you may think, and they don't want to be ruled by an American. I can't blame them. They proud of what they have and what they are. I can't blame them. I'm proud of what I am and where I am, to some extent, or where I'm going. And they are just as proud. They are not about to submit to no American just because I got a suit on. Rolex on. I'm not conscious of those things at that time. I'm conscious of it now. If I'm invited again back among them, I know how to dress, how to get out of this suit. Well, we came together. I got one of the greatest embraces from one of the brothers there in our Sabre. It was like unto a Muslim embrace, but it was more felt. It was foot to foot, knee to knee, arm to back, chest to chest. Feel my heartbeat. And he could feel my heartbeat. I could feel his heartbeat. It was a strong brotherly hug. One that I have never forgotten. I met up with them again in Peru in 2006. 2002. 2002. That was 2002. Chincha. I met up with them again in 2006 in Peru. In short, I met a brother. I met brothers and sisters in my visiting in the UN and learning how to speak to people and speak to the UN and not using Islam as my crutch. Wearing Islam, it's in my person. I'm naturally a Muslim, but I'm cautioned just about every day for the first 2 or 3 months. Don't say Elijah Muhammad. Don't say Mr. Muhammad. You can't speak your religion in the UN. So I had to camouflage in that. But I didn't lose that. Muhammad is still my man. I just before I close, I got to be open for questions. Just before we get this question, I do want to read what Messenger Muhammad said, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. We know how the devil has made us ugly. We know how the devil has made us ugly. Disfigured and whatnot. We don't want to be like that. So he told me out of his own mouth that we will be a different people. So I don't think you have to ask me that. Will he make us ugly? Meaning, because we're mixed with white blood, skin, and part white, part black. Some individuals asking messenger, that's going to make us ugly. The messenger is telling him, no, don't you worry about that. He can just leave us alone. We already that. Already ugly. Just leave us alone. We'll make ourselves pretty. But a person that has given you the right knowledge, right guidance, then you necessarily have to express that in person. If you want to look ugly, it's because you don't have knowledge how to clean yourself up. But Messenger Muhammad gave the Lord's foundation of Islam exquisite knowledge of self. And we began to clean stuff up, and thus we look clean. Time is up. Yes, sister. I know when time is up. Just one more thing. Hagar, this is Abraham's wife. Sarah's maid was from Africa, Egypt. Ishmael, her son, was the son of Abraham. He was your prototype. Ishmael. He is a prior model of you. You are the original man, the very first, the seed of Abraham, a friend of God, Allah. I want to thank you and Pastor Victoria for putting this meeting on for me. It is your heritage. Mecca, Arabia, your birthright. You were kicking around on the ground in childish fashion in this mountainous area surrounding Mecca, Arabia, where water springs forth from the ground, caused from your kicking. Your mother Hagar rushed over to care for you, and of her thirst, she took a drink of what seemed sweet, fresh water. This action is demonstrated today as a ritual by many, many Muslims called pilgrimage. I venture the pilgrimages, this evidences are coming into view. This new Black nation, Afro-descendant, coming into view. I'll stop here. Questions?
Thank you, Mr. Muhammad. We appreciate hearing the information that you gave us. Panelists and invited guests, we are over our time. I would like to ask if you don't mind staying on a little bit. If you have questions of the Honorable Salas Muhammad, we will provide you some time to ask those questions. I would ask that you limit the questions to about a couple of minutes. If you would like to do that. So I will take, I'd like to hear from the panelists. You can virtually raise your hand or raise your hand in the space if you would like to stay on to ask the Honorable Salas Muhammad some questions. Okay, I'm checking for hands. Okay, I don't see any hands at this time.
Dr. Brooks's hand is raised virtually, Madam Dr. Akila.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't want to impede on anyone's time, so if you do have to exit early, I want to thank you so much for being here in this space with us today, and we will be following up with you on our next steps. Okay, Dr. Brooks.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you.